Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Nonprofit Coach with Ted Hart, the most listened to internet radio show in the nonprofit sector, dedicated to helping your charity succeed. It's no secret that combining online and offline techniques is the key to modern-day fundraising success, and practical advice is what you need. The Nonprofit Coach with Ted Hart is the perfect landing point to learn from experts around the world who provide advice you can use. Ted Hart is without a doubt one of the foremost nonprofit thought leaders. Also a successful author, his books range from successful online fundraising to the use of social media and how to make your nonprofit green. Guests on the Nonprofit Coach are leaders in their field who share tips and trade secrets for nonprofit management and fundraising success. Ted lectures around the world, but now he's here for you. From the latest in charity news, technology, fundraising, and social networking, Ted and his guests help you and your organization move to greater levels of efficiency and fundraising success. This is a live call-in show. Add your voice by calling 347-324-3080. After the show, you can find all our podcasts at tedhart.com. Click on Radio. Don't forget to dial 347-324-3080. Now, welcome the host of the Nonprofit Coach, Ted Hart.
And welcome here to the latest edition of the Nonprofit Coach. Thank you so much for joining me today. We've got a terrific show for you, and I'm just looking to bring that music down. So our page 2 expert today is Simone Joyaux. I'll introduce her in just a few moments. We're going to get started with page 1 news. As the announcer mentioned, this is a live call-in show, so feel free to call 347-324-3080. You can also join us over in the chat room. I see some folks over there, so you can ask questions there, or you can email me your questions at tedhart@tedhart.com. With that, we're going to run right over to page 1 news. First up here on page 1 news comes to us from the Chronicle of Philanthropy. Chronicle of Philanthropy is reporting the latest 2015 benchmark study by the marketing firm M&R. They are reporting that online revenue at nonprofit organizations increased 13% from 2013 to 2014, a change attributable to the number, not necessarily the size, of online gifts. This is becoming much more ubiquitous across the nonprofit sector. Nonprofits participating in this study are showing increases in the United States, Canada, Australia, and South Africa. In this study, you'll also see the importance of maintaining your email lists. Participants in the study had their email list growing by 11%, a smaller rate than previous years, but having more sticking to the lists, less declines in those lists. So maintaining the relationship, again, as we have said, the online fundraising is all about relationships. It's all about community and communications. It's not a new form of fundraising. It's just a new set of tools. So you can read all about that over in the Chronicle of Philanthropy. Next up here on page 1 news, George Hamilton is here with us. He is here for this month's CFRE Minute. George, welcome back here to the Nonprofit Coach.
Well, thanks very much, Ted. I'm thrilled to be here in Eva's stead. She's traveling extensily this month, representing CFRE certification and CFRE International at some conferences in Brazil and New Zealand and Germany. So she's all over the globe representing CFRE this month.
May seems to be one of those very jam-packed months for conferences. I know I've got 2 weeks of travel coming up, New York, Las Vegas, Toronto, back to New York, San Francisco. So I've got that all in 2 weeks at the end of the month. So it's a busy month. But things are busy over at CFRE as well. So why don't you bring us up to date with the latest with this month's CFRE Minute?
Sure thing. Well, the first thing is that the call for nominations for the CFRE International Board of Directors is currently open. And for those who don't know, the CFRE board is made up of 10 CFRE certified fundraisers plus 1 public member. In 2015, there are 4 CFRE certified board member positions that will be up for election, with 2 currently sitting members eligible to continue their service for another term. And if folks are interested in presenting a nomination of a currently certified CFRE, those nominations would be due by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time in the U.S. on May the 25th, and more information can be found on the CFRE homepage under the latest news section. So again, the open call for board nominations runs through the 25th of May. The other exciting thing is the CFRE growth and certification numbers for the first testing window of this year. In total, 134 new CFREs were certified in the first testing window of 2015. That's up 26% from that same window in 2014 and up 31% from 2013 in test window 1. And the other exciting thing is that it really looks like that expansion of available testing centers around the globe that we talked about before on the show in relation to our new partnership with Pearson VUE is also paying off. There were 28 international certifications awarded in the first testing window this year. That's up 56% from last year and 87% from 2013. And we actually saw some certifications from places that really were underserved with our former testing partner. There's a new CFRE certified in Bermuda, one in Croatia just this past window, and 2 in South Africa, in addition to the more common international sites such as Canada or Australia. So that's all very exciting news, and really shows that partnership with Pearson VUE is going to really help expand the credential, not just in North America, but also around the world.
As we talked before, that just expands the opportunities for people to take the tests in a common format in so many more testing sites. It just puts it within reach.
Exactly. Bermuda did not have a testing site at all accessible to them until this year with Pearson VUE. In terms of Croatia and South Korea, massively expanded testing sites, going from 1 or 2 up into the dozen plus in those countries, makes it a much more accessible credential for folks.
George, how many total people are now certified with CFRE?
As of the close of this window, we're over 5,400. Actually, I think we're over 5,500. So we're up a little bit even from the beginning of the year.
That's terrific. And how does that? Yeah. Is that an all-time high, or is that tracking where you would expect it to be this time of year?
It's tracking right where we would hope it would be. We've got aggressive growth forecast in terms of our goals, and we're on track with that. So through the first quarter, and in fact, quarters 2 and 3 and 4 are actually our bigger quarters each year in terms of CFRE certification. So it was very rewarding and encouraging to see that number go up for new certifications for the first period of the year.
I know you have a lot of new content available on your website. How has all of that been received, and is that drawing more attention to CFRE?
I feel like it definitely is, and in particular, it's engaging current CFREs and people who currently have applications in process. It's engaging them with CFRE on a much more regular basis. We're creating content on the website. We've had our e-newsletter newsletter. It is a weekly newsletter. It's been going out since last fall, and we're really seeing more people engaging with stories on that and linking back through to our website, which we're able to track through Google Analytics. So we're definitely seeing a lot of increased engagement between CFRE International and our certificants and applicants through the stories and information that we're sharing with them as a resource.
Well, congratulations on the continued growth of CFRE and the growth around the world to truly being that global baseline certification for fundraisers, of course, here on the Nonprofit Coach. We encourage all of our listeners to go to CFRE.org, learn what the qualifications are, and begin tracking your progress towards either becoming CFRE or certainly making sure that you stay renewed and up to date with your CFRE certification. George Hamilton, thank you for this month's CFRE Minute. We look forward to a representative of CFRE being with us again next month.
All right. Thanks very much, Ted. Much appreciated.
Take care. We have such a big show and so many things that we want to talk to Simone Joyaux about today. We are now going to head right on over to page 2. In her official bio, Simone Joyaux says that she's described as one of the most thoughtful, inspirational, and provocative leaders in the philanthropic sector. I can attest to that. So it's not just a line. It is absolutely the professional that we have as our page 2 expert today. A consultant specializing in fund development, strategic planning, and board development, Simone guides countless organizations and professionals through their consulting and coaching, teaching, and writing. She works with all types and sizes of nonprofits, speaks at conferences worldwide. She is helpful to organizations, both large and small, and teaches in the graduate program for philanthropy at St. Mary's University in Minnesota. Her books, Keep Your Donors, Strategic Fund Development, and Firing Lousy Board Members, all received rave reviews. Simone has also contributed to several other books. She writes for the Nonprofit Quarterly, blogs weekly at Simone Uncensored, and publishes a monthly e-newsletter. As a volunteer, Simone founded the Women's Fund of Rhode Island, a social justice organization. She regularly serves on boards. Currently, she chairs the advisory board of the Center for Sustainable Philanthropy at Plymouth University in the UK, which we're going to be talking a little bit about today. And she chairs the board of directors of Planned Parenthood of Southern New England. Simone and her life partner have bequeathed their entire estate to charity. Very admirable. And you can find out more information about her at SimoneJoyaux.com. But more importantly, she is here with us right now. And welcome here back to the Nonprofit Coach, Simone Joyaux.
Well, hi, Ted. It's fun to be here again. I'm looking out my big windows, and it's actually spring in Rhode Island, which is, relatively recent since there was some snow and a big pile left in April, 10th. But now it's like all spring.
Well, I was looking at the schedule of the number of very, very highly rated times that you've been here on the Nonprofit Coach, and it seems like we can say if it's springtime, it must be Simone on the Nonprofit Coach, because this is about the time of year that you come to join us. So I want to hear what's new, and one of the things that's new for you and very, very interesting is your service with the Center for Sustainable Philanthropy at Plymouth University in the UK, founded by Adrian Sargent. Talk to us more about your service as chair of the advisory board. So bring us up to date. This is big news.
Well, so first, I'm just really excited about this center. And just as a little aside, you ought to get Adrian on sometime to the show to talk about it at length.
Absolutely.
So it's probably, I suppose, the newest center on philanthropy. We have a lot of wonderful centers on philanthropy. Think about the Lilly School of Philanthropy, which started out as a center at Indiana University in Indianapolis. This one that Adrian Sargent has founded is interesting to me for a couple reasons, and in no particular order. One, I've long been concerned about the lack of, what shall we say, Ted, academic rigor, academic research in the fundraising profession. We are a group of wonderful, admirable practitioners, and we've been passing things down. But to really be considered a profession in the world, and certainly in North America, is to be able to say, we have conducted rigorous academic research that shows that, for example, systems thinking is a major key component of good fundraising. Now, Adrian Sargent and Jen Shang did that research several years ago, and they have a report called Great Fundraising, and it proves that what you and I may have thought, Ted, about how systems thinking is important even in fundraising, well, it proves it is. So that's what this new center is working on. It's looking to create the bridge, the link between what academic research tells us, like in psychology, sociology, etc., and then create the bridge that says, this is how to use it in fundraising. So I'm really thrilled about that. The other thing that it is really focused on is growing philanthropy. Now, I know, we all talk about growing philanthropy, but they're talking about it in terms of, if we look at the United States and what is it, Ted, maybe 40 years or 40-plus years of the Giving USA study? Well, you and I both know, and anybody who reads that study knows, that charitable giving as a percent of GDP in the United States has never varied between 1.8 to 2.1%. So I want a bigger percentage. And that's why the center is called For Sustainable Philanthropy, and it's specifically about knowing enough about how to do this that we can actually grow philanthropy so that it's no longer 2.1% of U.S. GDP, it's 5%, 10%. So that's what's going on. And I'm also excited because
what do we think
Adrian,
early on? We're curious. I just wanted to ask. Early on, and obviously the research is just starting, and this is very exciting because across the board to grow the sector and to really understand what those gears and moving pieces are to making it truly sustainable. What do we know so far, and I guess more importantly, what do we not know?
Well, so for example, interesting things we do not know. You know how we keep talking about relationship building and the donor journey and all of that sort of stuff?
Right.
Like that's central to us. Well, we don't actually know, how it does or doesn't work. I mean, we know what little things to do, sort of. But we don't actually know, why they work and how we could do them differently and how we could do different stuff still picking on the things that make it work, as in psychology or whatever. So that's actually one of the pieces of research that has just started by the center. And I'm not sure when it will be available, but it's just recently started. So they're going to do a whole lot, obviously, of telling us all when these things come out. So that's a major piece, and that's just been launched. Other things that we don't know, and I'm not even saying these are things that the center will research, but they're just, as I think about it in my brain, things we don't know. You know how we recognize donors by gift size? In donor listings? We don't actually know if that works or why it works. I mean, we can suspect and we can say, well, everybody does it, so it must work. So, I have no idea if the center would ever research that, but that could be interesting to know. Another piece of research that's just been. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm wondering if we sort of fear that there are no norms, that it is a truly individual process of philanthropy, or do we have enough empirical evidence to say there are some norms, we just don't know exactly what they are?
I think actually from a practitioner point of view and from when you think about how many years, I don't know that we need to mention them, Ted, the years you and I have been in this field.
A few.
Right. That we've been passing on to each other what works, and it does work. But in many cases, we don't know why it works. And if we knew the why, then that gives us more power to adjust things. Because we would know the why, so as we adjusted, the why would still be there. We would adjust it within those parameters. So to me, that's what's so exciting about this. What we do is we keep doing continuing education, the training at conferences, all very important. But I frequently sit in the audience and I'm thinking, why? Why did that work? Well,
so we know. We know that it works. We just don't know why it works.
We don't know why. And if we knew why, then we could keep replicating. As opposed to well, it works, and so I think I'll tweak it. Oh, my gosh, look what happened when I tweaked it, because I didn't know why it worked the other way.
In the first place. Okay.
Precisely.
Well, that makes sense. When did the center start? So the Center for Sustainable Philanthropy.
Right. So the first meeting of the advisory board was this is May, right? So it was in October of 2014. So Adrian had been starting it at Plymouth in 2014.
Okay.
So it's only just, getting up. There is you can go to their website, which is Center for Philanthropy at Plymouth University in the UK, and then it'll pop up, and so you'll see who's on the board of the advisory board. And I want to stress it's an advisory board. It's not the governing board. It's got a number of people from the UK. It's got Matt Beam from the US, who's the CEO at Hartsook, and Bob Carter, the former chair of AFP, is from the US. There's people from Oxfam, the chief fundraiser there. The new CEO at Resource Alliance is on the advisory board. We're still sort of evolving the advisory board and sort of looking at who we need and that sort of thing. So Jay Love from Bloomerang, the CEO and co-founder, is on. So another interesting piece of research to me is looking at Amy Eisenstein's book where she talks about major gift fundraising for smaller organizations.
Yeah, we just had her on the show, and it was absolutely fascinating.
Oh, cool.
Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah,
so
yeah. And she was telling you about the research.
Exactly. So I encourage everyone to go to the archives of the Nonprofit Coach.
Yeah.
And you can find it at tedhart.com.
Yeah.
Good
so
plug.
that's why I'm excited about it, is we have to be academically based as well as practitioner based. We've got to link the two, So
well,
anyway,
that's fascinating. Just getting started. So you've got research, and obviously being at Plymouth, I'm guessing that this is going to be done on a global scale.
Yes.
Okay.
So
we're gonna change our focus just a little bit. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want you to focus on one of the areas that you are such an expert on, and that is boards of directors, the makeup of boards of directors, and you have some interesting questions that you're asking about the role of CEOs, executive directors, and makeups of boards of directors. So I'm not going to give away more than that, because I want our guests to hang in there. But one of the very deep thinkers on this topic is, of course, Simone Joyaux, and we're going to be right back after this break. Get out your calendars and your pencils. I just want to make note of next week's show. So here live on the Nonprofit Coach next Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern, Susan Schaefer from Resource Partners and Bob Whitting, the Executive Director of Jovid Foundation, are going to be here. And their new book is Nonprofit Board Service for Geniuses. So this ties in a little bit into our next topic. But we will also have, that's our page 2 experts, but we will also have our GuideStar Minute here on the Nonprofit Coach, and Gabe Cohen will be here with us from GuideStar. Next thing I want to just share with you before we go back to the live show with Simone Joyaux is a little thoughtful information about how are you sending your email, and should you, in fact, be sending your email encrypted.
Have you ever wished you could take back an email you sent to the wrong person? Or have that nagging feeling that your confidential message was forwarded without your consent? Do you sometimes email sensitive data even though you know most email isn't secure? And we all have, because we're busy, and because in the world of email, there are no takebacks. Until now. Introducing Virtru, the simple way to send and receive secure email with confidence. Virtru is easy to install and use, and it works with your favorite email programs like Gmail, Outlook, Yahoo, MacMail, and more. When you hit the Send Secure button, your email is encrypted before it leaves your computer or smartphone. And even better, you can revoke a message at any time. You decide whether a message can be forwarded by recipients. You can track where your message is forwarded, and more. Download Virtue today and start sharing with confidence, because everyone deserves digital privacy and security without hassle.
Remember, our podcasts and archives are always available 24 hours a day at tedhart.com. Click on radio links. If you're listening live today, the phone lines are open. Call in and ask a question by dialing 347-324-3080. Now, back to the Nonprofit Coach with Ted Hart.
And we're back here live with Simone Joyaux. Simone Joyaux is one of the foremost experts on a number of different topics. One of those is smart boards of directors, efficient and well-managed boards of directors. And I think you've got some evolving thoughts on this and some very specific areas. Simone, take it away.
Well, so I get this email about a month ago, Ted, from a colleague who, she's sending me this email just because she wants to see if I might start jumping up and down screaming in the privacy of my own office. So the question or the topic that she sent me was, should nonprofit executive directors, CEOs, be the chair of their boards? And the premise, apparently, in my reading of this thing she sent me, was that since executive directors kind of do everything anyway, they just may as well be the chair of the board. Well, I can only tell you that I jumped up and down ranting and raving. So here's my thinking on this. Yes, as I always say, the executive director needs to be very good at governance. The executive director needs to be so good at governance that she or he can help the board understand governance, because it's not like most board members go to school to learn about governance. Right. That said, I believe that the board needs to be volunteers, and the board chair needs to be a volunteer. And together, the board chair and the executive director do a kind of testing of each other, if you will, a balancing of, do we think this is actually governance work to talk about at this board meeting? What do you think, Ted, as the executive director? What do I think as the board chair? What angle of something is governance? I believe that the board chair and executive director should have a strong enough relationship that they can actually disagree with each other as they help shape the board meetings. So I actually believe that the executive director cannot, should not serve as the board chair. And I actually had a client where the executive director at one point said to the board, "You are relying on me too heavily to do the governance as well as the management. You expect me to practically run the board meetings, and that is not acceptable." So that was the general, as I say, introduction that and the little ranting and raving that I did around my room.
Simone, isn't there on this premise that's put forward, and I know you're probably the best person to send sort of a provocative question like that too, so it can be thoroughly vetted. But don't you have to go to a much more basic level, and that is, how would the executive director or CEO in this case then hire him or herself, evaluate him or herself? Don't we go to a more basic level of this doesn't work even on its most basic level?
Yeah, I like that. I'll add that to the article I eventually write. Yeah, I mean, when you think about
and
it...
And you can quote me on that, Simone.
I will. Absolutely. So when you think about it from a most practical point of view, right, I mean, can't you just see it at the board meeting? So you're the executive director. So first you put on your board chair hat because you're chairing the meeting. So So you call the meeting to order, and you do a couple things, and then you take off your board chair hat. You put on your executive director hat because your board chair hat self just asked the executive director to make the report about what's going on in management or whatever.
I think this is, the title of your article could be Executive Director as Emperor, because at that point,
I like that
why do you need a board? Why do you need a board at that point? Because the whole notion of having a volunteer board, having that independent view, as much as board members need to be trained, and board members are, as you just said, board members are not born skilled; they are trained skilled, and so like everything else, these are learned activities. But it is a group activity. I mean, the successfully run nonprofit. What I always say is a successfully run nonprofit is a team sport. And as much as all of us have that nagging feeling that if I just did it myself, it would be far more successful. The reality is that's probably not true. That it is the interplay and it is the varying experiences and input that actually comes to a better resolution than just leave it all to me.
Well, and it's this kind of checks and balances, right? So I think what the person was saying, who shouldn't just let the executive director be the board chair, is doing what I hear a lot of people when they talk about governance. They say we need a new governance model. I don't think we need a new governance model. What I think we need, and I don't think we need, executive directors serving as board chairs, we just simply continue to refuse to do the work the proper way. And so when it doesn't work, like, there's no one who's going to be the board chair or going to be good, and the executive director is the one that's doing all the information anyway, so why doesn't he or she just be the board chair? It's like, no, what's wrong is you got the wrong board chair. What's wrong is your board doesn't understand group process. What's wrong is your executive director doesn't know how to enable a board chair to do what he or she is supposed to do. It's not being a puppet master. It's being a good enabler.
Well, and I think it's also, part of what's lacking here is, in the very question, the executive director or CEO is admitting that they don't understand nonprofit governance, because the essence of the nonprofit is not the paid staff. The essence of the nonprofit is the volunteer community activity. It may grow into then hiring professional staff because of the various nature of the work. But if you boil it all down and you say, what is the essence here? The staff goes and the board stays.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's just, as I say, I think there's this larger issue of when something isn't working, we sometimes decide, it's the model, it's the whatever. It's like, no, the plant in your front yard is dying due to lack of water. You didn't water it regularly. A different plant is going to have the same problem.
Right. Well, possibly, but I think the plant analogy is an interesting one, though, because it takes you to, there are certain skill sets to look for in board members, and certain plants will thrive in some areas and not in other areas, which means board members are not absolutely interchangeable, and board members don't all have the same skill set. So finding the right fit for your garden or finding the right fit for your board is an equal sort of task here. I want to keep us on schedule, and you've given me a lot of things to think about here. Did I already address, or did I need to ask you about something about your trip to London?
Oh, no. It was the Center for Philanthropy.
The Center for
Sustainable Philanthropy that I thought was so.
Which is a bit outside of London, but probably related, right? A bit outside.
Right. Yes, because the meetings were in London. What's interesting, though, what's interesting in London or in the UK, as well as in France and several other countries, is that board members are not expected to give a charitable gift.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think about that? Because I think that we've had a certain viewpoint on that, and that seems to evolve.
Yeah. So I believe that one must be very careful to not ask others to do things one is not prepared to do oneself. So when you think about charities, when you think about nonprofit organizations, they're in the fundraising business. And I'm trying to envision myself, right, as a board member of a charity, going out and asking other people to give a gift and realizing that I don't give a financial contribution. Sure, I give my time, but that doesn't pay the telephone bill.
Right.
So to me,
and why would someone else contribute to something that I don't think is worthy of my own support?
Exactly.
You can take that a little bit further. I mean, one of the somewhat controversial, less now 3 years in, but when I first started as CEO at CAF America, where I currently serve, I took a look at this organization as a charitable organization, and one of the things that I built in to a revised annual review is a component of everyone's annual review is community service. And my view is that as a nonprofit organization, how can we suggest that we understand nonprofit or charitable work if we ourselves as a staff do not commit ourselves on an annual basis to giving back in some way, that we're not willing to give of ourselves, but yet we can tell everyone else that philanthropy is wonderful and everybody else should be engaged in philanthropy. Just do as I say, not as I do. And I don't think that's okay. And I think that's the same as what you're saying about board members is, here's what I've often said, and you've heard me in some of my board training is what I tell boards of directors is I start off by saying, I've got some good news for you. You do not have to make a philanthropic gift to this organization. And that automatically gets their attention because it's like, oh, great, I've been being beat up and being told that I have to make a contribution, and isn't this nice that this consultant comes in and validates the fact that I don't have to make a contribution. And so then I just say, now all you have to do is pass a budget and put together and fund a budget that does not require philanthropic support. So if you can fund this place without philanthropic support, then in fact you don't need to raise money, and if you don't need to raise money, then you don't need to give. But as soon as you adopt a budget that requires philanthropic dollars, you've done two things. One, as a board of directors, you've now committed yourself to meeting that budget. So you're going to be part of that process. It doesn't become someone else's job to go raise that money. But you've now also committed yourself to setting an example, and by setting an example, it means that you give.
Precisely. Daryl Upsall, who's from the UK but has been living in Spain for, decades and is a big, as a consultant, he wrote a blog in 101 Fundraising, that international blog, and it talked about, and he said, one of the things that North America has over the rest of us in fundraising is they expect board members and staff, particularly like the fundraising staff and the CEO, to give gifts. And in, whether it's whatever other country, that is not at least in Western Europe, is not as common. It's certainly common in my experience in Australia and New Zealand. But you got to ask yourself, how can you work for this charity if you don't give a gift to this charity? And how can you work for this charity as a staff person and not give to other charities in addition to this one? I mean, don't you believe in philanthropy?
Right.
And the same thing goes for board members. I'm assuming board members are giving to multiple charities. And I don't care if it's $5. It's not about gift size. It's about participation.
Right. Well, so and what I say is if you're going to serve on this board of directors, the only thing that I'm asking is that the organization be in the top 3.
Yes.
So, I'm not saying it's got to be bigger than your house of worship. I'm not saying it has to be bigger than your alma mater. But if you're serving here, then we should be in the top 3. And
because
so you
how
decide.
Do you think we're going to feel, when we see that you give everybody else more money than us? I mean, I think one of the reasons...
You love them better than us, right?
Right, exactly. So, when I was presenting in Paris a couple of years ago, it was the second time I'd presented, and I was getting tired of hearing people say to me, well, that's not our culture, or that's not how we do things. And so I sort of said, look, I'm just telling you at the start of this session, okay? Don't tell me when I'm talking about fundraising, that's not the way you do it, and you're never going to do it that way. Because I'm coming to you from North America and the United States, where I think the United States has all sorts of problems. But it just so happens that in North America, United States and Canada, we do a lot of personal face-to-face solicitation for big gifts, whatever big is, and we believe that board members are supposed to give and staff too. I said, you need to get there. You need to, whether you're in Slovakia, France, the UK, China, you need to get to that point. And you will someday because,
Yes, and I agree with you, but I'm just wondering if this is something that not tomorrow, but the Center for Sustainable Philanthropy might look at to say, we know this is true, we say this, you and I have said this forever, but is there a difference between the fundraising success of organizations where board members give and the fundraising success of board members who don't give? We say this, we understand it, and the principle is true, but is there any empirical information that says, in fact, organizations have more sustainable philanthropy when board members are engaged and give than those that don't? I would find that very, very interesting. Again, test the theory, because that's something that you can measure. Do you have a policy of giving? Do you have 100% giving, or do you not? If you don't, you're in this pile. If you do, you're in this pile. And what is your fundraising success over time? Particularly in the U.S., that would be easy to measure because of the 99.
Right. And I have seen some research through like the Nonprofit Research Collaborative and the Fundraising Effectiveness Project that prove through what has transpired that if board members play, the fundraising program is more successful. What I want to know is why. What can psychology tell us? What can sociology tell us about why, if all of us in our group do it, in this perspective, giving, that it helps reach out to others? So it's the why. It's not because we know, in fact, as I say from some research, that yes, if board members give and blah, 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 then you raise more, the fundraising program is more successful. I want to know why. And that's
why.
Sociology,
but
psychology.
Also, how much more? How much more? What's the delta that I'm looking at here? Am I 20% more successful, 25%, or am I only 5%?
Right.
And then I can make a decision about how much that 5% is worth to my organization.
Right.
I want to keep us going on some of these wonderful topics that you brought up for the show today. And one of them is this notion, but I want to kind of expand the question. Why doesn't every single non-governmental organization, nonprofit organization, use personal face-to-face solicitation every single year to support general operations? Do major gifts work? But I also want to share, there's an article in the Chronicle of Philanthropy just posted yesterday regarding some research, and this is some research that came from Network for Good. So not necessarily face-to-face, but the whole notion, and I think it carries forward to the online, of peer-to-peer, people asking people, not nonprofits asking for gifts. And what Network for Good showed is that generic giving pages, so just a donate now page someplace, year over year, 2013, 2014, had declined in online giving by 11%. If you had a branded giving page, in other words, you weren't using a sort of a standard, in other words, you weren't sending people to Network for Good, you had a branded giving page.
Right.
Year over year, your online giving was up by 22%. But if the basis of your program, was not, I'm the charity asking you for money, go to my website and give, but it was Ted asking Simone to give to a charity, it was peer-to-peer asking, your fundraising was up 70% year over year.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about here? What's the principle?
So I've been learning a little bit, and I'm just going to make a guess here, but I've been learning a little bit from, the researcher, the director of research at Sargent's New Center for Sustainable Philanthropy is a woman named Jen Shang. Jen is the first PhD in philanthropy and is a philanthropic psychologist. So some of what she talks about is social information, as in people like Ted Hart and Simone Joyaux are giving to this. Would you give to this? Or people like you are giving $350 to this. Would you consider $350? So I think there's something around where we identify ourselves, okay? And that's what Jen would talk about, how we identify ourselves as this kind of a person, that kind of person. It's also, I think, the credibility of, Ted asked Simone, and you're credible to me. Where I run into trouble, however, okay, is I say all the time, don't trespass on personal and professional relationships. Identify those who care about the cause. So I tell all my clients, and I write all the time, just because my mommy could give and I can ask her, she's going to give because it's her child asking her. I want to remind my mother I'm the firstborn. So she's going to do a favor for me because she's my mother. That's not a sustainable giving model. Because as soon as I'm no longer affiliated, she isn't going to give anymore. So I take great exception.
General, possibly, unless it also follows the perspective of birds of a feather flock together. So I asked you to give to something that you might already be have an interest in, and because I'm showing interest in that, then so yes, I think you're right. Yeah, it's a mix. It's
fine.
A mix.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm going to meet with you personally.
Back to my earliest question, do we somewhat fear that the answer is it's very individual?
Oh, well, and I do think it's very individual. Absolutely. And I think you're right. What we want, okay, in my experience, and you and I watch this all the time, I think many nonprofits are trying to figure out a way to avoid doing actual fundraising, which is, hello, are you interested in this cause? Would you like to fulfill your aspirations to changing the world by giving through our organization? So what we do is, how much you want to bet there are tons of people on this telephone, on this show right now, and tons of people out in the fields everywhere who are desperately trying to find the next ice bucket challenge.
Well,
what
sure.
a bunch of bullshit.
I refer to those folks, and I always try, and we try to help them on this show, because I refer to them as victims of white glove fundraising syndrome. I don't want to get my hands dirty, and I don't want to get too close to it. So if I can, put a button on a website and people will just give lots of money, or if I can, tweet something, then people will give a lot of money, as opposed to what I think, and at some point, the Center for Sustainable Philanthropy is going to tell us if this is true or not, but we only have many decades of empirical information to tell us that people meeting people and talking to people and inspiring people that they know to do good works is what works.
Right. It's like you always say, the internet, e-philanthropy, all this stuff is a tool. It is not the answer, so to speak.
It's part of an overall strategy. I think you make a mistake by not having the internet as part of your overall strategy, because that goes to donors giving in a way that they want to give. It's not because it is doing the fundraising for you.
Exactly.
It is because you have successfully made the case, you have successfully made the connection, you have built a relationship that draws them to want to give, and now the tool allows them to give in a convenient and efficient and effective way.
Right. The other thing
for you. It didn't do the fundraising.
Exactly. And one of the things that really worries me is the distinction between I paid the gift I decided to make online, or I learned about you online and was solicited online. So when we keep talking about how more and more people are giving online, it's like, excuse me, You mean they're paying their gift online, but they're actually responding to the solicitation you made to me over dinner, okay? I just happen to pay it online. Or the direct mail letter you sent me, but I just happen to pay it online. And those are two vastly different things.
Mm. Well, and I think, this research talking about peer-to-peer solicitation, whether you're responding to an email that I sent or I saw you at an event or where the interaction was, and then you gave the essence here, and that 70% growth is being tracked by the fact that someone other than the charity is making the ask, and the donor is responding to that ask. And I think that's, from the earliest days of e-philanthropy, that is what I have said and others have said about e-philanthropy, is that this is, and one of my books is entitled People-to-People Fundraising. This is about people asking people, people connecting to people, and these are tools that allow them to connect. And that's, one of the things I point out when I'm talking about, online fundraising is I start off by just asking people, what is the common element of every single person on Facebook, every single person on Twitter, every single person on LinkedIn? We're talking about billions of people just in those sites alone.
Right.
What is the one thing that is the same of all of those people, regardless of where they are on the planet? And the one thing that is the same is that they desire to connect, because there is nothing that requires you to be on Facebook. You can live your life and hopefully be just as happy and successful if you do not have Facebook, do not have LinkedIn, do not have Twitter. But in utilizing these tools and these services, you are connecting to vastly larger number of people, and it's not taking the place of a relationship. Again, it's a tool enhancing that relationship, which is why people do it. People go to these places because they, as human beings, we innately desire to connect, and these tools are not replacing a relationship. They're not getting in the way of a relationship. They are enhancing a relationship, which is why we voluntarily do this.
And as long as fundraisers remember all that, that's good. And as long as they see they distinguish between why, how, tools versus, I don't know, raison d'etre or something, then it's fine. But we get, as you say, the white-gloved approach of, honestly, I really don't want to do this. So, sure, I'll forward the email, and then I won't have to do anything.
Right. Well, and that, so that the white glove syndrome sort of sneaks in. It's, sort of like a virus that, this stuff works, so maybe that is why it works. So if I just send out more emails, or if I do more of that, that is what works, belying what we know to be true. And again, studies will be done and studies have been done. But what we know to be true and knew to be true from the earliest early dawn of e-philanthropy is that we knew that this was a human engagement that was enhanced by the Internet. It was not the Internet gobbling up human experience.
Right. Yep. Indeed. So one thing that's kind of interesting to take a look at, Ken Burnett, the glorious Ken Burnett of the UK, wrote Relationship Fundraising, and now his new book, Storytelling. He has a 5-part series where, and one of them was just published today, the 4th part, about how bad fundraising is now, and that maybe we made a mistake with fundraising and marketing. Now, I haven't read it yet. It just came in. But talk about, somebody big in our field who is asking us to think about things. It's a real shocker. So I would recommend that to people on the listening in, that's something that we should all be reading and hit the whole series, all 5 parts, and then really talking about it. Because
I think we should always challenge ourselves. Yeah, I think we should always challenge ourselves as to, and I think this is what's really terrific about this Center for Sustainable Philanthropy is we should challenge ourselves to say why. And I think in the why, the guiding principle, I hope, somewhere in the Center for Sustainable Philanthropy is an understanding that it is a human activity that we are looking to understand better, but it is not an activity in and of itself. In other words, philanthropy doesn't just exist; it comes into existence through the human experience. And understanding what sustains that. What is the air that philanthropy breathes? What is the water that philanthropy lives on and lives in? I think those are the interesting questions about how do we sustain all of that. That I'm so excited, and certainly having you and some of the other folks that I know very well involved tells me a very interesting. So only 4 minutes left, okay? But I do want you to sort of take into the Simone Joyaux world of interesting thoughts on philanthropy. Martin Luther King's statement that philanthropy is commendable, but it must not cause the philanthropist to overlook the circumstances of economic injustice that make philanthropy necessary.
Yes. So one of my favorite all-time books is a book called Robin Hood Was Right. I'm walking over to get the title of it. Robin Hood Was Right, A Guide to Giving Your Money for Social Change. So it's about social change. Most philanthropy is compensating for things that aren't working. So we could use the concept of homelessness or hunger very quickly. So thank heavens we have charities that are feeding the hungry and housing the homeless.
Right.
And then we have charities who are helping them, get jobs and training, et cetera. But ultimately, there has to be a living wage, or else they still will be hungry and potentially homeless. And ultimately, we have to go to the head of the river and figure out why there isn't a living wage and why, after I trained you to fish, there's no place on the river for you to fish from because it's owned by all the big corporations or all the big fisher people or whatever. So I really like Martin Luther King's statement where he's saying, in essence, we can't just survive with Band-Aids. We have to make the systems change that is causing the problems. And that's social change philanthropy. That's social justice. And a lot of people don't want to hear about that, and they don't want to talk about it.
Well,
so
but thankfully some people do. But thankfully some people do. I mean, the wonderful thing about philanthropy is, again, as I've said so many times, it is a team sport that is played by humans. And being a sport, some people are soccer people and some people are baseball people.
Right,
some people
exactly.
are football people.
Exactly.
And so, as long as you're engaged in the sport and you're keeping your philanthropic acumen healthy, you're working out at the philanthropy gym, then it can take on lots of different flavors, and it needs to because it's a very big world with a lot of different needs. Now, I've only got a minute and a half left, so I need to say goodbye, and it's terribly hard, and you need to come back because this is great stuff. Please tell my listeners how they can reach you.
Oh, you can reach me through my website, which is and just my name, SimoneJoyaux.com. So that's SimoneJoyaux. And aren't we all fortunate to love philanthropy so much and to be able to participate in all kinds of different ways?
Absolutely. And I know that our producer, Diane Peach, is listening in today, and so I'm asking her to get you back on the show as soon as we can because I enjoy these conversations so much, and you bring us so many things to think about. Simone, it is spring, and therefore Simone is here on The Nonprofit Coach. Thank you so much, and everyone, we will see you next week here on The Nonprofit Coach.
Thank you, Ted. Thanks, everybody.
You've been listening to the Nonprofit Coach Radio Show with Ted Hart. Tell all your friends to check out our production schedule and download our iPod and iPad-friendly podcast at tedhart.com. Thanks for listening to the Nonprofit Coach.
Have you Googled yourself lately? Are there negative posts from an ex-employee or from a former client? Maybe an outdated news article? Search engines don't always get it right. But right or wrong, it's your reputation on the line. That's where Reputation Defender by Norton comes in. Take control with Reputation Defender. Their cutting-edge approaches help you to wipe away unwanted information in your search results. They also promote the good stuff. You can start by getting your free Reputation Report Card at reputationdefender.com or call 800-811-4975 to speak to an expert.
Top reasons your career wants you to move to Ohio. So many amazing growth opportunities, high-paying jobs in technology, advanced manufacturing, engineering, life sciences, and more. You'll soar to new heights, just like the Wright brothers, John Glenn, even Neil Armstrong. Their careers all took off in Ohio, and yours can too. A job that can take you further, and a place you can't wait to come home to. Have it all in the heart of it all. Launch your search at callohiohome.com.